It was almost midnight when the flickering neon light above the "Open 24 hours" sign began to hum louder, casting a lonely blue glow across the empty parking lot. Inside the convenience store, a young cashier named Emily Turner was closing up her register, rubbing her tired eyes, unaware that the night was about to take a terrifying turn. The hum of the refrigerators and the buzz of the fluorescent lights were the only sounds keeping her company. She was just 18, working late shifts to help her mother pay rent. It wasn't the kind of job she dreamed of, but for now, it was all she could do to keep their small apartment from slipping away. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and people who step up when no one else will, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because what happens next is something that'll remind you there's still good left in this world. The store had been unusually quiet that night, the kind of eerie silence that makes the hair on your neck stand up. Emily had noticed a group of rough-looking men earlier, 3 of them, lingering outside near the parking lot, smoking, laughing, and throwing glances at her through the glass doors. She tried to ignore them, pretending to be busy restocking shelves, but her hands trembled slightly. Her heart told her something wasn't right. When the clock finally struck midnight, Emily sighed in relief. She double-checked the register, counted the cash twice, and went to lock the doors. But as she reached for the handle, she realized one of the side doors hadn't shut properly. She leaned forward to fix it, and that's when she heard it. A low laugh. The kind that crawls up your spine. Before she could turn, the door swung open, and 3 men stepped inside. They reeked of alcohol and danger. Their boots thudded against the tile floor, echoing through the quiet store. Emily froze. Her breath caught in her chest as one of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, smirked and said, "Closing time, huh? Maybe not for us." Emily tried to stay calm, her voice trembling as she said she couldn't sell anything after hours. But they weren't there for snacks or cigarettes. They circled her slowly, the scarred man grinning while another knocked over a display of chips just to hear the crash. Emily's mind raced. There was no security guard tonight, and her phone was behind the counter, too far to reach. Fear clawed at her throat. She thought of her mother asleep at home, thinking her daughter was safe at work. She thought of how this small job, this tiny convenience store, was supposed to be simple, just ringing up items and smiling at customers. But now, she felt trapped in a nightmare. One of the men stepped closer and whispered something cruel that made her flinch. She backed away until she hit the cold glass of the refrigerator door. They laughed. One reached out to grab her wrist, but then, out of nowhere, a low, rumbling sound echoed from the back of the store. A sound like thunder rolling down asphalt. At first, Emily thought her mind was playing tricks on her. But then came the heavy footsteps. The sound of boots. More than one. From behind the rows of shelves emerged 2 large figures, leather vests, heavy boots, and the unmistakable insignia of a biker club glinting under the fluorescent light. The taller one, a broad man with graying hair and tattoos running down his arms, looked at Emily first, then at the 3 men cornering her. He didn't need to say a word. The room's temperature seemed to drop. The thugs froze. The biker stepped forward, his voice calm but deadly. "You boys lost." The leader of the group tried to sneer, but his voice cracked slightly. "This ain't your business, old man." The biker's eyes narrowed. "When you make a young girl cry in my presence, it becomes my business." The air was thick with tension. The second biker, younger but equally intimidating, picked up a can of soda from the shelf and tossed it casually into the air, catching it with one hand like it was nothing. "We were just grabbing a snack," he said softly, but his tone made it clear he was talking to Emily, giving her a chance to breathe again. "You okay, sweetheart?" Emily couldn't speak. She nodded, tears threatening to spill. The scarred man cursed under his breath, looking between his crew and the bikers. He must have sensed it. These weren't men who bluffed. Their jackets read Iron Saints Motorcycle Club. Local legends, known both for their toughness and for cleaning up their own streets when the law looked away. The store fell silent, except for the low hum of the lights. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the older biker stepped forward until he was inches from the thug's face. The scarred man tried to meet his gaze but faltered. In that moment, all the drunken bravado evaporated. The biker's voice dropped to a growl. "You got 3 seconds to walk out that door before I forget I'm trying to be a better man." Something in his tone made even Emily shiver. The men backed off, muttering curses, but none of them dared look him in the eye again. They stumbled out into the night, slamming the door behind them. The bikers watched until the taillights of the car disappeared into the distance. Emily stood frozen, still clutching her hands to her chest. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you." The older biker turned to her with a small, kind smile that softened his rough exterior. "You don't have to thank us, kid. We were just grabbing a coffee before heading out. Didn't expect to see something like that." He paused, looking at her trembling hands. "You shouldn't be working here alone this late." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I can't afford to lose the shift." He sighed, shaking his head. "What's your name?" "Emily." "Well, Emily," he said, walking to the counter and pulling out his wallet. "Here's what you're gonna do. Call your mom. Tell her you're safe. We'll wait right here until she picks you up." He slid a few bills across the counter. "And lock that door from now on before you count the register, all right?" Emily's throat tightened. No one had ever shown her that kind of care before. She nodded and did as he said. While she called her mother, the bikers quietly went about picking up the mess the thugs had made, restacking fallen items, putting back chips and drinks. They didn't have to, but they did. Her mother arrived 20 minutes later, her eyes wide with fear until she saw Emily safe. The older biker smiled politely, assuring her that everything was fine. As they left, Emily's mother hugged the bikers and whispered something like, "Thank you for saving my baby." They just nodded and left into the night, the sound of their engines fading into the distance. But that night changed Emily forever. In the following weeks, word about the incident spread. People who once judged the local bikers for their leather jackets and loud engines started seeing them differently. The Iron Saints had always been misunderstood. Yes, they were rough men with checkered pasts, but many were veterans, fathers, and workers trying to find redemption on the open road. Emily began leaving little thank you notes at the counter, messages for the bikers whenever they came by for coffee. "Thanks for watching out for me," she'd write, adding a small heart at the bottom. They never said much about it, but she'd notice one of them always left an extra $5 in the tip jar. Months later, Emily was promoted to assistant manager. She worked earlier shifts now, safer hours. And every so often, the Iron Saints would stop by, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to check in. They'd wave through the window, nodding quietly before driving off. Then, one day, the news broke that the same group of thugs had been caught breaking into another store, this time arrested, thanks to a witness who tipped off the police. Emily had no doubt who that anonymous caller was. One evening, just before closing, Emily found a small leather patch in an envelope under the counter. It was the emblem of the Iron Saints, along with a note. "Keep your chin up, kid. The world's not as dark as it looks. You've got more angels out here than you know." Emily smiled through tears, clutching the patch close. She taped it behind the counter where only she could see it. It became her reminder that courage doesn't always come with a badge or a uniform. Sometimes, it rides in on two wheels and walks out quietly, leaving only the sound of thunder behind. So many people walked past that store every night, never knowing the story that had unfolded within those flickering neon lights. Never realizing that one small act of bravery, one decision to step in, can change someone's entire life. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because kindness, courage, and second chances are what keep hope alive in this world. And before you go, comment below, have you ever seen someone step up when no one else dared to? Because sometimes, the heroes we least expect are already standing quietly in the back of the room, just waiting for the right moment to remind the world what goodness still looks like.